So I'm going to begin by asking about Cynthia. I mean, she's absolutely wonderful in the role. What made her your Harriet when you were in the casting process? What was it about her that made you think she's my lead?
Yeah, well, she was on the film before I was, but what struck me when I met her, she'd been away doing a movie with Jeff Bridges, you know, and so when I met her, I'd been diving pretty deep into the research, and so she was physically so much like her. That was super, you know, it was amazing that, because Harriet was 5 feet tall, you know, very tiny, and yet strong. You know, they said strong as two men, and you know, she could run really fast. And that was Cynthia. Cynthia's kind of like this amazing athlete and marathoner, and singer. You know, and that was interesting too because Harriet's voice was very important in the cause. I mean, that's how she, in her communication with the enslaved people, her call to them that she was there and now's the time to run. You know, she used song. And so that was really interesting. And then Cynthia and I started to talk about the specifics of where her voice was versus Harriet's and what Harriet sounded like. And we talked about looking at her face and looking at her eyes and her mouth and really trying to channel her and bring her pain, you know, to not be afraid of that, her womanhood, because she did experience great sorrow and heartbreak. And you know, we wanted her to be accessible and as dimensional as she was.
And I've just interviewed her, and she's just so
she's amazing.
Lovely.
She's amazing.
But that must be so important when you're working on a film like this, which is it is heavy material, and some scenes are really tough, I'm sure, for her to act and for you to shoot. Yeah. To have someone like that and that kind of energy must have been so good in between takes to have her sort of around the place. Yeah,
it was very difficult, and we got each other through it. And we got each other through it often. We actually held each other's hand. I mean, it was a very intense director-actor relationship. And so we've gotten very close as a result, you know. But it was kind of a perfect relationship, you know. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was a huge part of my joy in the process. So the whole cast was wonderful, but Cynthia is a very, very, very special person who I'd like to work with again. You know, she's amazing.
And I didn't know the story of Harriet before coming into this movie, which I think is, because I think we're under-taught certain things in the UK, and I think this whole period of time is one of them. Is that one of the most important things, and one of the things that most wanted you to tell this story, is that you're telling it to people that might not know about her? I mean, because I guess you're sharing her story with the world, which I guess cinema is a great tool for that sort of thing.
Yes, it is. It's a wonderful tool for that. And, you know, we think we know her in the States, but we still don't really know her, you know. We know that she's a great hero. You ask somebody, a kid, about Harriet Tubman, an American kid, and they'll say she freed the slaves, but they don't really, it's not very accessible, you know what I mean? Nor are we aware that she did this as a young woman. You know, because the images that we had of her were of an old lady, you know, in a chair. And those were the pictures that we saw. It was certainly up until very recently when these other images of her surfaced as a younger woman. And so just to present her as a young woman, to realize that this hero's journey was done by a woman, you know, in her mid-20s, mid to late 20s and 30s was when she was doing most of her mission work, you know. That was incredible.
And how important is it, do you think the story is being told right now in a specific moment in time?
Well, I think it's a time when it can be told. The producers had been trying to make the movie for a long time, and the first script was written 20 years ago. And I think it was ahead of its time, you know? I think that now we are ready to have a young black woman heroine, you know, who is a resistance fighter. That's really important. That's something that's glossed over a lot in American history, you know, the idea that the enslaved people wanted to escape, you know, and what you're willing to do for freedom and what you're willing to do for other people to have freedom. I think it's super important.
Thanks so much for the time. Much appreciated. Cheers.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!